Hi friends, this is Mara again with another Childhood Hours video. Today, we're going to Ghana, and I want to start with a baby. 8 days old. It's a small courtyard somewhere in Accra. Family has gathered, aunts, uncles, grandparents, neighbors. The baby, whose name no one has spoken aloud yet, is brought outside for the first time in her young life. An elder dips a finger in water and touches it to her lips, then a drop of palm wine, just a touch, sweet and bitter, so that from her very first day in the world, she knows the difference between truth and falsehood. And then, she is given her name. But here's the thing. Half of that name was decided before she was born, before her parents ever met, before anyone knew if she would be a boy or a girl. Because in Ghana, your first name is the day of the week you were born. To understand how children grow up in Ghana, you need to understand one word. Sankofa. It comes from the Akan language, and it means, go back and fetch it. There is a symbol for it, a bird with its head turned backward, reaching for an egg on its back. The meaning, it is never too late to go back for what was forgotten. In Ghana, a child is raised facing forward, while always being taught to look back. Ghana is a country of 33 million people on the West African coast, and in 1957, it became the very first country in sub-Saharan Africa to win its independence from European rule. Ever since, it has held a special place in the African imagination, the land of the first. There are over 80 languages spoken across Ghana. The largest groups are Akan, Ga, Iwe, and Dagomba. And most children grow up speaking three, their family's mother tongue, English at school, and often Twi, a kind of unofficial national second language. In Ghanaian culture, and especially in Akan culture, which shapes the south of the country, a child is not born once. A child is born into a story, into a clan, a day, a lineage, a set of ancestors who came before. The Akan word, abusua, means more than family. It means the entire matrilineal line, stretching back through generations. When you arrive in Ghana, you do not arrive as an individual. You arrive as the latest chapter of something much, much older. That's what the outdooring ceremony is really about. 8 days after birth, the baby is brought outside for the first time, named, welcomed. In Twi, this welcome is called akwaba, and we'll come back to this word at the end. The family pours libation. They speak the baby's name aloud. Sometimes for the first time, they invite the ancestors to bear witness. Because a child in Ghana is not simply yours. A child is also theirs. The grandmothers who came before, the clan they belong to, the community gathered in that courtyard. About that day name. Every Akan child receives a kraden, a soul name, based on the day of the week they were born. A boy born on Friday is Kofi. A girl born Saturday is Ama. Wednesday, boys are Kwaku. Thursday, girls are Ya. And you may have heard some of these names without knowing it. Kofi Annan, the United Nations Secretary General, was born on a Friday. Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's first president, born on a Saturday. It means that before a child opens their eyes, they already belong to time, to the rhythm of the week, to the moment they arrived. For the first year or two of life, most Ghanaian babies spend their days strapped to their mother's back, wrapped tightly in a long cloth, head resting against her spine. The child sees what the mother sees, goes where she goes, sleeps when she sleeps. There is no separation between a baby and the world. A child in Ghana is not a creature to be protected from the world. A child is the world, carried into it from the very first day. In the evenings in many Ghanaian households, especially in the south, there is a kind of storytelling so old nobody knows when it started. The Anansi stories. Anansi is a spider, a trickster. He tries to outwit gods. He tries to hoard wisdom. He sometimes succeeds. He more often gets caught. Through Anansi, children learn, without ever being lectured. They learn that cleverness has limits, that greed backfires, that the smallest creature can outsmart the largest one if they think clearly. A grandmother does not have to say, be humble. She just has to tell another Anansi story. Now, if you saw our Brazil episode, you may have already met Anansi without knowing it. When the Akan people were taken from this very coast in chains, they carried Anansi with them. The stories crossed the Atlantic. In Jamaica, he became Anansi. In the American South, he became Brer Rabbit. In the Caribbean and parts of South America, his spirit lives on in the trickster tales of the African diaspora. This is Sankofa in action, the grandchildren of Ghana scattered across the world, still telling the same spider stories their ancestors brought with them, going back to fetch what was nearly forgotten. Children in Ghana also grow up surrounded by another kind of inheritance, Adinkra symbols. These are visual proverbs, small, beautiful symbols stamped onto cloth, carved into wood, painted on walls. Each one carries a meaning. A heart for patience, a ladder for the journey to heaven, a bird looking backward. Sankofa. Long before a child can read words, they can see the wisdom of their culture. The walls of their home speak in symbols. The cloth their grandmother wears teaches without saying anything at all. Formal schooling in Ghana begins around age 4, with 2 years of kindergarten, then 6 years of primary, and 3 years of junior high. Education is free and compulsory through age 15, a policy Ghana committed to early after independence. Kwame Nkrumah believed an independent African nation had to begin with educated children. At the end of junior high, every student sits the BECE, the Basic Education Certificate examination. It determines which senior high school they can attend. And here's where Ghanaian school culture becomes unlike anywhere else. The best senior high schools in Ghana are boarding schools. Akamoda, Wesley Girls, Prempeh College, Mefansipim. Their names are spoken with the kind of reverence Americans reserve for Ivy League universities. At 13 or 14, the most academically promising children pack a metal trunk and move into a dormitory for 3 years, far from home, among classmates who will become their family for life. It is one of the great rites of passage in Ghanaian childhood. You go away, you come back changed, and the school you attended will follow you for the rest of your life. In Ghana, every adult older than you is auntie or uncle. Not just blood relatives, the neighbor down the street, your father's friend, the woman selling kenki from her cart. When you greet them, you may bend slightly at the knee. You always offer your right hand, never the left. These are not formalities, they are the architecture of respect. A child in Ghana never moves through a room of adults without being seen, without being greeted, without being claimed. You may remember from our Nigeria episode the Yoruba concept of Omoluabi, the person of good character, the whole village raising one child. Ghana shares this deep West African inheritance. The village raises the child here too. But where Nigeria's parenting points toward character, Ghana's points toward continuity. The child is being shaped, but the shape is one their ancestors would recognize. The lessons are not new, they are ancient, and the goal is not to make the child unique. It is to make them whole, connected, held inside something larger than themselves. The Ghanaian year is full of festivals. Homowo, the Ga festival, for hooting at hunger, celebrates the harvest each summer. Odwira, the Akan purification festival. Adai, the celebration of the Asante ancestral stools, held every 6 weeks. Children are at the heart of everyone, dressed in kente cloth, dancing to drums, pouring libation, being welcomed again and again into the unbroken story of their people. And then there is the music. High life, hip life, azonto. The rhythm of Ghana lives in its children's bodies from the moment they can stand. A Ghanaian child does not learn to dance. A Ghanaian child is already dancing. The drums of the village find their feet long before their thoughts. So let's return to the word Sankofa. It is more than a proverb. It is a way of raising children, to know who came before you, to know what was sung at your outdooring, to know which day claimed you, to know the stories your great-grandmother told her children, to go forward, but to keep turning your head and reaching back. Because what was forgotten is still recoverable, as long as you remember to look. But Ghana is not a finished story. There are children, especially girls from the rural north, who carry heavy goods on their heads in southern city markets far from home. They are called the Kayaye. There are children working in fishing villages along Lake Volta in conditions no child should know. There is a gap between the children of Accra and the children of rural northern Ghana that the country is still working to close. A nation that loves its children deeply is still learning how to protect all of them equally. And Ghana, like every country in this series, is on that journey. Finland says a child needs freedom. South Korea says a child needs preparation. Brazil says a child needs belonging. Nigeria says a child needs a village. India says a child needs lineage. And Ghana says a child needs a story, a name, a day, a spider tail, a symbol on the wall, a grandmother who can tell you who you are. So what is the thread running through all of this? I think it's this. Ghana has built a culture that refuses to let a child arrive alone. When you are born, your name is waiting, your day is waiting, your spider stories are waiting, your ancestors are waiting, your aunties and uncles, your clan, your symbols, your songs, your festivals, all of it already in place. A child in Ghana does not have to invent themselves. They only have to walk into the story that was already being told for them. And there is one word I want to leave you with. Akwaba. It means welcome. You see it on signs at the airport in Accra when you land. You see it carved into wooden plaques over front doors. You hear it called out across courtyards when guests arrive. But it means something more than welcome. It means you have always belonged here. We have been waiting for you. Come in. Akwaba. It is what was said over that 8-day-old baby in the courtyard. It is what is said at every funeral, every wedding, every homecoming. It is what Ghana says to every child it raises. Welcome, you have always been ours. Here's something to sit with. What story were you born into? What did the adults who raised you tell you about who you were before you could even speak? If this episode moved you, surprised you, or made you think, that's exactly what this series is for. Subscribe so you don't miss our next stop. Italy. The country where childhood comes with a Sunday lunch that lasts 6 hours, and where the most important room in the house is the kitchen. If you haven't seen Nigeria, Brazil, or India yet, they are the perfect companions to this one. I'm Mara. See you next time. Bye, friends.